here are your 2022 NBA champion, Golden State Warriors.
Question: can you buy wins in the NBA? If a team spends enough money, will it inevitably lead them to a title? I asked these questions because a couple weeks ago, news broke that the Warriors had signed their up-and-coming star Jordan Poole to a 4-year extension worth $123 million. And then shortly after, it was announced that Andrew Wiggins also agreed to a 4-year extension with the Warriors for $109 million. 2 9-figure deals dished out on the same day by the same team. But neither Poole or Wiggins are the highest paid players on the Warriors. That would be Stephen Curry, who's also the highest paid player in the entire NBA. And then Klay Thompson, and then Draymond Green, and then Jordan Poole and Andrew Wiggins. Just these 5 players combined will make a mind-boggling $174 million in the 2023-2024 NBA season. For perspective, when the Warriors assembled arguably the greatest team ever in 2017, the entire team had a payroll of just $101 million. The Warriors are handing out more massive contracts than any other team in NBA history in order to retain their spot as the best team in the league. And so far, it's looking like a great investment. So, I'll ask again, can you buy a championship in the NBA? Well, there's really only one way to find out. Today's video is brought to you by SeatGeek. A new NBA season is upon us. Just look at it. Ain't it beautiful? And with the season underway, SeatGeek is here to get us back in on the action. Check this out. Just download the SeatGeek app and use the promo code Jimmy to get $20 off your first order. SeatGeek makes buying tickets easier than ever before with a rating system that lets you know which tickets are a good deal and which tickets are a bad deal. If it's green, that's a banger. You're getting a good deal there. Red? Not so much. I've been using SeatGeek for years. It's simple, it's easy, and it's a surefire way to get the best deal for your tickets. Whether it's a concert, basketball game, football, baseball, festival, SeatGeek's got it all. Download the app, use promo code Jimmy, and get $20 off your first order today. Back in 2010, LeBron James joined the Miami Heat as, unanimously, the best player on the planet. And in his first season with the team, he made $14.5 million from his NBA salary. At the time, this was a nice big contract for the league's premier superstar. But times have changed. $102. There are 102 NBA players who will make more money this season than a prime LeBron James made a decade ago. Part of this is due to inflation, but mainly this is due to the fact that the NBA simply generates far more revenue than it did back then. But throughout NBA history, teams have been willing to pay an insane amount of money to have a chance at a championship. In Michael Jordan's last season with the Bulls, MJ was paid, quite possibly, the most amount of money relative to his peers in the history of sports. In the 1997-1998 NBA season, Michael Jordan made $33.14 million from his NBA salary. By himself, MJ made more money than the combined team salaries of 19 other NBA teams that season. His contract was so massive that the league implemented a maximum salary rule the following season, which prevented teams from paying the equivalent of an entire roster's payroll to one single player. Even by today's standards, this is a giant one-year salary. But if we adjust for inflation and total revenue driven by the league, Jordan's 1998 salary would be the equivalent of an NBA player making approximately $120 million this season, which makes the contracts of even the highest paid players today look like an absolute bargain. It's insane, I know, but it's true. The man was very valuable, and this massive contract would prove to be well worth the investment. The Bulls needed Michael, and they also knew that having him on their roster was the closest thing to a guaranteed championship. So they paid up and were rewarded for doing so. But in today's NBA, a league that's crowded with talent, 9-figure contracts being handed to players coming off the bench, is it possible to buy your way to a championship? If a team is willing to pay a hefty luxury tax and spend more than market value for the available talent, does that guarantee success? Well, first, let's look at the teams that actually won championships throughout the years and how much they spent on their roster. Last season, the Warriors won the championship, and wouldn't you know it, they had the highest payroll in the entire NBA. In 2021, the Bucks won the championship, and they did not have the highest payroll in the entire NBA. In fact, among all teams that won a championship over the last 30 seasons, only 5 championship teams had the largest payroll in the NBA. When looking at the numbers, there's actually almost no correlation to how much a team is willing to spend and whether they win the championship or not. Sure, teams with some of the cheapest rosters virtually never win, but teams that have some of the most expensive rosters also don't win the majority of the time either. And surprisingly, 8 of the last 30 championship teams had a total team salary that was cheaper than the average team salary in the league at the time. The craziest example of this was back in 1995 when the Rockets won a championship despite having the 4th cheapest payroll in the entire league. Money can buy good players, but it can't prevent injuries, locker room issues, unforeseen circumstances, and it certainly cannot buy a championship. But what about wins? Does spending far more money than other teams equate to winning more games than other teams? Well, last season the Lakers had a team payroll of $164 million. And they won just 33 games. That same season, the Grizzlies won 56 games and had a team payroll of just $117 million. The Lakers spent damn near $50 million more than the Grizzlies just to not even make the playoffs. But this is an extreme example of team payrolls not quite converting to wins. So here's a graph of every NBA team last season with team payroll on the left and total wins on the right. And if you look closely, there's actually a subtle correlation between how much a team spends on their roster in a season and how many wins they pile up. These teams spent less money and won fewer games. These teams spent more money and won more games. But there's no exact science here. For example, the Thunder spent about 45 cents on their roster last season and still won more games than the Rockets, Pistons, and Magic. The Phoenix Suns spent a little bit more than the league average on their roster last season, and they won by far the most games in the regular season. But generally speaking, spending more money does in fact yield more wins for any given team. But far more often, it will not yield a championship. That, however, has not stopped teams from trying. Back in 2005, New York Knicks owner James Dolan went all in and spent a criminal $124 million on the Knicks roster that season. The salary cap at the time was $46 million. So with a roster payroll that dwarfed the league's salary cap, Dolan paid the league a mind-numbing $62.3 million in luxury tax in hopes that his wealth would grant him basketball immortality. It did not. The Knicks finished the season with just 23 wins and the worst record in the Eastern Conference. Money cannot buy you an NBA championship. But the goal isn't just to spend as much money as possible. The goal is to sign the best, most cohesive players money can buy to your roster, which in its very nature leads to spending more money. For this exact reason, the rookie contract is by far the most valuable deal in the NBA. Last season, players like Darius Garland and Trae Young were all-star caliber talents for the small price equivalent to that of a bench warmer. Thanks to his rookie contract, Luka Doncic was named first-team All-NBA last season, while being the 126th highest-paid player in the NBA, right behind players like Al-Farouq Aminu, Rashawn Holmes, and Jeremy Lamb. In fact, here's a graph of how much every NBA player is paid relative to how much value they give their teams in terms of win shares. It's not perfect, but it does the job. Now, in a perfect world, every player would be paid exactly what they were worth, which, hypothetically, is this line right here. But of course, this is rarely the case. Jonas Valanciunas and Daniel Theis are examples of two players who get paid exactly what they're worth statistically. Their teams are literally and statistically getting what they paid for. Now, most NBA players fall right here. Role players, rookies, young unproven talent, guys like that. Over here are the players who are grossly underpaid, usually rookies stuck on their first contract waiting to cash in once it expires. Here's Trae Young, here's Luka Doncic, and here's Mikal Bridges. These are the contracts owners and GMs dream of. Overall, players below this line would be considered underpaid, and players above this line would be considered overpaid. Despite being the 4th highest paid player in the NBA last season, Russell Westbrook didn't offer much from a winning perspective, which resulted in him landing here. According to the numbers, and injured players aside, the most overpaid players in the league last season were Russell Westbrook, Kemba Walker, and Blake Griffin. Their impact on winning is slightly above that of an average player, but they're all getting paid like they're superstars. But you would never say that Giannis Antetokounmpo is overpaid, and yet he's way up here. Same goes with Nikola Jokic, Kevin Durant, Joel Embiid, and LeBron James. In fact, most above average NBA players would be considered overpaid relative to the rest of the league, because you're either good enough for ownership to keep you around, which allows you to make demands regarding your contract, or you're just below average, making you completely replaceable, virtually making it impossible to negotiate a decent contract, and you'll just take whatever you can get. There's hardly any middle ground here, and the Warriors are a glaring example of this, since after re-signing Jordan Poole and Andrew Wiggins, the Warriors' Big Five land here. And this right here perfectly summarizes the financial aspect of the NBA. Kevin Durant did not contribute 3 times as much to the Nets last season as, let's say, DeJounte Murray did to the Spurs last season. And yet, KD made 3 times as much as Murray did. Because when a player reaches a certain level of excellence, there is no formula to how much they're worth. You don't bargain with these players, and you certainly do not let them walk and risk ruining your chances at a title. You simply pay them whatever they want, and you count your blessings. But according to the rules, the Warriors can only pay Steph so much. Thanks to Michael Jordan, his NBA salary has a very finite ceiling, but the rest of the money can go to every other player that helped them win a championship last season. Steph has reached a level in the NBA, and specifically within the Warriors franchise, where he can demand virtually any dollar amount, and it would be completely justifiable. Steph could ask the Warriors for $150 million a year, and if it wasn't for the maximum salary rule, Joe Lacob would be so eager to get him his money, he wouldn't be able to pull out his checkbook fast enough. Similar to what the Bulls did with Michael Jordan in his last few seasons with the team, the Warriors are going all in with Curry. They know that as long as he's in his prime, they have a damn good shot at winning another title. They've got their hands on one of the greatest players of all time and a supporting cast that complements his skill set better than anything they could have imagined. So if it means paying a young Jordan Poole one of the biggest contracts in the entire NBA, paying an aging Draymond Green more money than any other team would offer, and paying Andrew Wiggins exactly what he asked for, it's all worth it. Is any player overpaid if they play a crucial role in winning a championship? It's tough to call anyone overpaid if they were a vital component to winning that banner that hangs in your rafters, and they give your team a legitimate opportunity to hang another one. Because of the maximum salary rule, Steph will never get paid truly what he's worth. But that doesn't mean the Warriors can't spend the money in other places. Now, you know you're good when you get paid, but you know you're great when you get other people paid. And because of Steph's impact, his whole squad is laughing to the bank. Because just like every team that came before them, the Warriors cannot buy a championship. But that won't stop them from trying.